This segment of VOD TV is brought to you by Muddy Outdoors. Your muddy moment starts at GoMuddy.com.
You know, it's easy for us to get excited about a parcel of property, particularly when you're starting to get a little bit of history with it. And then all of a sudden you start implementing those strategies. And that's exactly what we've done here. This is part 3. We've had a little bit of history now, understanding exactly where they're bedding, where they're feeding, how to access it, what winds we want to hunt it on, and all of those are key elements as far as harvesting big mature deer, because the last thing you want to do is run out the deer you're hunting.
Well, here we are, it's June 6th, and we're over here on the farm we call it 248. And last year, this time we had corn that was like 10 to 12 inches tall over here, but this spring we've just been plagued with rain. We've had like 19.5 inches here in northern Missouri. Came over here, it took a while. We had to haul our equipment over here. I rode the tractor over here yesterday, it took about 3 hours. And then I hooked the bush hog up and mowed all the corn that's here. So I'm in here, I'm mowing all this corn, as you can see behind me. And I definitely just mowed over a pretty good shed. I can see part of it back there, so go check it out. That's a pretty nice deer right there. There's a lot of ways to find sheds, and mowing them over like that is not the correct way. Gonna put a little bit of fuel in the tractor here. I got the fertilizer cart hooked up, so we're gonna spread some fertilizer on it. And then we're gonna move the blind we had here from last year. The deer seemed to shy just away from it, and we kind of got a better idea last year where they're coming out. So we're gonna move the blind a little bit, and then we're gonna start putting some corn in the ground. Well, as you can see, it was pretty easy. This Omega trailer is super easy to use. It took me, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes to take this blind down by myself. So I'm just gonna go ahead and back it in where we're gonna plant beans here. Back it up, and we're just gonna leave it there until I come in here and plant our corn, and then I'll come in and set the blind up. And we won't crank it up yet, we'll leave it. We'll crank it up as the corn grows. Last year I came in and cranked it up when the corn was maybe 5 or 6 feet tall. That way the deer just get used to it being right on the edge of that corn line. So we'll come in and crank it up later this summer, and then we'll be ready to hunt, but we'll just leave it over there in the bean ground until we're done planting our corn. All right, so we're running fertilizer on this field. We like to fertilize a little bit heavier right in front of our blinds because it increases the palatability of those plants there a little bit. It might make them a little bit sweeter. Sometimes it makes them a little more willing to come. It tastes a little bit better, it's a little bit sweeter, has a little more nutrition in it. So we're just gonna make a few runs and increase the palatability of the food plot a little bit right next to the blind here.
This year, we've moved that muddy blind just a little bit, about 20 yards, so that when they walk down that lane or that road from north to south, we're gonna have about a 22 to 24 yard shot. We've got beans to the south, corn to the north, and sometimes it takes a little bit of history, which is what we've done. That MRI is so important in understanding where they're bedding, where they're feeding.
This bottom is really big. You've heard Terry say it before. The deer just don't like to cross it during daylight because there's just not enough cover. They feel exposed. So we're gonna try to plant that corn all the way up to the edge, give them more cover. We're gonna move the blind about 20 yards closer to the road. That'll put us about 25 yards off the road. All our bucks last year, we had a couple encounters with a couple decent bucks. Both of them came down that road and just never offered a good shot opportunity. Well, if our blind is 20 yards closer, that puts them at 25, 30 yards. Much better shot with a bow and arrow, or during gun season, if they do happen to pop out, they're definitely in range. So that's the game plan, so we're gonna get after it.
You know, that guest row that we talked about in part 2 was extremely important as far as accessing that stand and going undetected, because a lot of times they're bedded on that hillside, and once the foliage is off, they can see down in that bottom pretty easily. So slipping and sliding in and out of there was kind of a treat. This is what we call a guest row. We had one last year, made it a little wider this year. It's absolutely perfect for slipping in and out of a blind. This is the ticket right here. We kind of think we've honed in on it this year. We feel like we've really got a better understanding on how to kill these deer on this particular parcel. It's one of the coolest little whitetail farms. It is an absolute mecca for whitetails on a parcel of property. I absolutely love it.
Well, we're right here on the south end of the 248 now. We're planting this corn. You can see Chad's he's in the tractor planting behind me, giving me a little bit of a break. The blind is down there behind me. But what we did on this row I'm standing in, that row is a lot wider than that row and that row. And what we did is we leave that row wider, but it's a guest row, so that allows us to access our blind down there. So what we'll do is we'll park the blind in the corn, and it'll be exactly in line with that, so we can literally slip down that row of corn. I'll cut off those the leaves off the corn there so we can slip in real quiet. Deer will never know, because a lot of deer bed on this hillside here behind me, and we can slip in there without them knowing we're even here. So it's pretty slick.
You know, in addition to the MRI and understanding bed and feed and vice versa, feed to bed, it's important to understand how to access the timber. And I truly believe that's the key to this particular parcel, catching them coming off of those bottom fields in the morning. We've got a couple of spots. Forrest has went through extensive research, you know, checking out trails and rub lines and scrapes and finding out exactly where we want to hang in the timber. And that's another strategy. A lot of guys, that's the first thing they do. Well, sometimes it takes a little bit of history and understanding what times of the day they're leaving that food source and filtering up into that bedding area. So we've got a really, really good game plan, good strategy. Couple trees picked out. We're going to get some sets hung up in the timber. If we're not productive down in those bottom fields, I feel 100% confident that we're going to be extremely productive up in the bedroom.
I literally just made the last pass on the cornfield for 2019. It's the last corn put in the ground. Just finished this, like, I don't know, it's like an 8-acre field, and it just started raining really hard.
We got the food, we got the bedding, we got the water, we got a lot of information with the Reconyx cameras, so we're utilizing those trail camera photos and understanding what times of the day they move. You know, last year we had a little bit of trouble because the moon was upside down just a little bit, so you'd see them stage up, and right at legal shooting hours, then they'd hit that bottom. This year the moon is a little bit better for us, so we're hoping that we're going to be a little bit more productive. We're going to give it our best shot. Hopefully we'll get some big ones on the ground. This is a piece that I think everybody should take a look at.
January 13th, and finally got it done on my second buck tag here in Missouri.
Forecasting deer movement was just the beginning, and DeerCast has evolved into so much more, offering groundbreaking new features like DeerCast Track, our comprehensive shot tracking guide, a 10-day deer movement forecast, and DeerCast Custom, the ability to tweak our proprietary DeerCast algorithm to best represent your individual hunting areas. Because we don't want to just get you in front of that perfect whitetail, we want you to be ready for everything that comes after. So get ahead of your game and stay there with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This segment of DoD TV was brought to you by Ram Trucks. Guts, Glory, Ram.